Hello, my name is Len Berg. I'm a soul therapist and founder of Innerspire Therapeutics Incorporated. It's a practice that supports your efforts to unmask the hidden inner obstacles that affect your progress or success towards well being and fulfillment within the self, in relationships, at work, in business, and in society. The following video on activating your inner spiritual powers is about balancing business and money making with personal growth and development. Recently, I attended a 10X conference in Miami, Florida, led by a world renowned business entrepreneur, Mr. Grant Cardone. He owns and operates several companies worth an estimated $350 plus million. The conference attracted over 12 high profile, financially successful business persons and celebrities, and over 35,000 current and would be small and large business entrepreneurs. It shared proven universal principles in sales, marketing, and execution with an emphasis on solving people's problems. I attended this conference with my wife, Neva Yvette Rayberg. She's a Beachbody coach and former fitness trainer and colon therapist. We had heard about it from an up-and-coming entrepreneur and business coach, Miss Farida Akadiri. She invited me to speak at a one-day summit a day before the 10X conference, focused on the theme, Activate Your Inner Powers. In our pre-10X forum, Miss Akadiri and several other personal development-oriented entrepreneurs, Miss Bibi Pedron, myself, Miss Mary Rust, and Miss Terha Watterson and company, spoke not just on making money, but also on doing so, as I said, with personal growth and development as well as community service. This video captures my presentation about activating your inner spiritual powers. Hopefully my words will complement your own efforts to fulfill not only your worldly, career, and material goals, but also your higher purpose and calling. Personally, as a spiritual seeker with a soul therapy coaching business, I'm struck by this. Would that any or all of us be as serious about our goals as the 10X speakers were about success of making money, the world would be in a better place to live in and we would be more fulfilled. It is obvious to me that riches alone don't guarantee health or peace of mind. For many, an obsession with money and career has given short thrift to work-life balance and family. Not to say spirituality. In fact, we have no way of knowing whether the richest of the rich are experiencing problems we know nothing about. But what gives hope is that most of the 10X speakers seem committed to using much of their wealth to serve humanity. As a soul therapist, I always try to glean, well, what is the goal? Is it just to increase sales and live a lavish lifestyle? Or does it include a higher purpose for which we as human beings have been put on this planet? Great mystics have said, man is the crown of creation. And what profiteth a man who gains the whole world but loses his own soul? Please do enjoy this video. I welcome your feedback. Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. As I said to Farida in Paris, she said, she was so glad that I trusted her to come to Paris. I said, no, I trusted you to call me to Paris, not even really knowing me, you see. Oh, this has been delicious. I mean, and I'm not full yet. I'm overflowing, what I've been hearing. I mean, you guys touched on so many points that my mind is blasted. I'm going to talk about activating your inner spiritual power. And the reason I want to talk about that is because some of the things that have been said, you mentioned the cage, the golden cage. It reminds me of a story that a saints once taught me. I've been around the world, I've met several saints. I've sat at the feet of several saints, and I've been blessed by their teachings. And one of the things they emphasized was that
We're all in prison. Every single one of us. We're in prison. Some of us have golden chains. Some of us have iron chains. But we're like the person in prison who the warden gives them a nice TV and a good job in the prison and a bed, and they're happy. But they're not really happy. One of the things that the masters, the saints have taught me is that we're all suffering. We're all suffering. It's not that we don't have happy moments in our life, that we're not fulfilled doing this and that and the other thing. No, that's not true. I mean, that's true. But they say that you're still suffering. You're not fulfilled completely. Okay? We mentioned addiction. Somebody mentioned addiction. I always thought of that as instead of coming down on people who are addicted, they're just trying to get to heaven, but illegally. And this is the message. We're all individuals, right? Look at the word. What do you see in the word individual? Can somebody tell me? What two words do you see in the word individual? It's there. Indivisible. I'm sorry, individual. Part of you is indivisible, and part of you is dual. Part of you is immortal, and part of you is mortal. This suit of clothing. Somebody mentioned it. You said everything I want to say already. You know, you have your physical body, that's a suit of clothing. The clothes, your race, your religion, your nationality, it should all be celebrated. But it's just a suit of clothing. People talk about the self. People come to me, I'm a soul therapist. And people come and they talk about themselves. But what do they mean? Are they talking about that suit of clothing? Or the real self? On the walls of the pyramids in England, it said, know thyself. It's so good to hear what you guys are talking about as far as the physical body is concerned, because the saints say the human being is the crown of creation. And this is the temple of the living God. So we need to take care of it, you see. But the question is, why? If the Spirit is what gives us life, why should the Spirit keep us living? What does the Spirit mean? We talk about our life purpose, right? But the Masters made me realize that, well, it's twofold. You have your karma, meaning there's things you're supposed to do on this planet that have to do with your talent, your skill, your passion to help the world, so forth. But then what's the real purpose of life? Why were we put here? You may notice that all the churches and synagogues and mosques, they're all shaped after what? The human body. This is the church. This is the synagogue. This is the temple. You see? And I come from a Christian background, but now I'm a better Christian than I was when I started, because I learned about the universality of all religions. The word religion, what does it mean? Religar. To bind back, to bind back, to bind the soul back to God. So, as a soul therapist, what I try to do is help people to get in touch with what is going on in their lives. What is the root cause of it? Like Mary said, you know, doctor wants to give you drugs, but the drugs don't deal with the root cause. So as a soul therapist, we discovered that there are underlying emotions, underlying thoughts, underlying ideas that aid and abet and have a causal relationship to the physical problems, not only the physical problems, the relationship problems, the business problems that we are experiencing. But something beautiful happens. It happened to that brother there. When you get in touch with the underlying emotions and ideas that you've been suppressing and denying, and you shine the light of consciousness on them, as Mary said, the body heals itself. Well, let us say the spirit heals the body. Because you've recognized it. You guys here, I believe everybody in here is chosen. You're chosen ones. Many are called, few are chosen. When you were little, and your mother sent you out to play, right? And she said, be back for lunch. You had to be back, right? And if you didn't come back, didn't she come and get you? Similarly, the Lord sends these souls down here to the creation to experience life. But there comes a time when the Lord says, I want to see you. The Lord said to Mary, the Lord said to Peter, I want to see you. I got to die? No, you don't have to die. But what? I want to see you. You can come and then go. You see? That's a chosen person. We who are chosen, we don't have a choice. You see? There's a divine plan, and we have to be vehicles through which to help fulfill that divine plan. The problem is, though, that we suffer and we don't feel fulfilled sometimes because we're not doing what? Making that spiritual connection. Making a spiritual connection doesn't mean you go off into the mountains and you run away from the world. But think about it this way. We feed the body every day, don't we? We even feed the emotional body, because we have more than one body. We have a physical body, emotional body, mental body, causal body. We feed our mental body, we're all studying, reading. But do we feed the spiritual body? How do you feed the spiritual body? You see? And what I was taught was that the main way to feed it is to pay attention. What does pay attention mean? There's a very simple formula that I use in my work. Sometimes in this world, you've all experienced how people who are experts in things make it very complicated, because if it's very complicated, then they have a monopoly on it. But sometimes it's very simple. Okay. Does everyone in here believe that there's a God or a higher power? I mean, I know there's some atheists, but I say, okay, well, we didn't create ourselves. Whatever he created you, whatever you want to call it, okay. What within the human being is analogous with that higher power? What is it? It's not a trick question.
In the human being would be the brain, right?
What is it in you that uses the brain?
Consciousness?
Ooh, she skipped a step.
Oh.
In the Christian scriptures, it says man is made in the image of God. And it doesn't mean that God is some old man sitting up on a hill and we look like God. No, it means that the soul or spirit is of the same essence as God. There are three qualities of God as a spirit: omnipotence, omnipresence, and omniscience. All powerful, all knowing, and everywhere. This is our essence, you see. So some guy says to the spiritual master, well, if God is within you and the spirit is within you, why do we need to do all of this spiritual work? And the master said, well, yes, spirit is in you and God is in you. The problem is they haven't met. They don't know each other. Okay, so you have God and you have the spirit. What does the spirit use to negotiate the world? You mentioned it. What uses the brain?
The body.
The spirit uses consciousness. Because you're not your brain.
No.
You're not your eyes, your mouth. No. So here's a very simple formula, folks, and you can all use this in your own work, right? When you're not actively being conscious, right? What are you cutting off yourself from? If the spirit uses consciousness to negotiate the world, when you inconscientize, you are cutting yourself off from your spirit. And your spirit is what gives you life, right? And your spirit is connected to what? God. The root cause of all disease. Inconscientation, not being conscious. Some people think that if you feel anger and negativity inside, you shouldn't be aware of it. Well, no, you shouldn't indulge it, but neither should you suppress it. The Buddhists have a system where they call it satipatthana, where you pay it bare attention. I look at my watch, right? I got it. I'm on my way. I don't indulge those emotions, but I don't suppress them. Because everybody who gets sick and those who heal, you realize what you've been suppressing and denying. You see? So the road to health begins with consciousness, conscientizing. Now, I was so happy to hear about Mary's experience because I've done support groups for people with AIDS and cancer and life-threatening diseases. And there's a formula for those who are most successful in surviving, but not just surviving, surviving at a high level, okay? Thriving. There's a formula. And the very first important part of that formula, now, here's what you should all remember, right? Cancer and AIDS, all of these are what's called life-threatening diseases, right? But any recurring, chronic situation in your life that causes upset is a dis-ease, okay? You mentioned cortisol. They all dis-ease produces an excess of hormones that damage the immune system. Not just the diseases we call, cancer and AIDS, no, all dis-ease, okay? So people who are experiencing dis-ease, what is the formula for success? The number one thing people do is they deepen the spiritual connection. It says in the Bible, what profiteth a man who gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Why did a financial man engage me as a vice president when this man's a millionaire, companies making millions of dollars? He recognizes that what good is all this money if you're not fulfilled? And I'm not going to say if you're not happy, because my spiritual teacher told me, no, you can be happy one minute and sad the next. It's what most counts is what gives you peace. Peace is what. Okay. So such people, they strengthen their spiritual connection. That's number one, numero uno. The second thing they do is they decide that this dis-ease is not a death sentence. Remember, I'm not just talking about the so-called, the big ones. Any dis-ease is not a death sentence. It's an opportunity to live life to the fullest. It's a message saying, you ain't living. You gotta start living. And if you're not connected to your spirit, you ain't living. You're existing. I don't care if you're a businessman, I don't care what you do. You're going to do it better if you connect to your spirit. The third thing is they engage holistic lifestyle factors not as a temporary fix, but as a permanent way of life. Now here's the important thing to remember. I connect with a group in Brazil of some very heavy psychotherapists. I mean, this guy, Norberto Keppe is his name. This guy takes Einstein and Socrates and he chews them up and spits them out. But I noticed one thing. He's a master in philosophy, he's a master in science, and they include philosophy and science and metaphysics in their approach to psychotherapy. And that's why people are getting healed from physical diseases. But I made the point to them. I says, if I want to gain mastery in terms of physical awareness, I'm going to go to someone who's mastered that, right? I'm going to go to Tara, Jacob, My wife, she was my first physical fitness coach. She's got mastery in that, right? I want to learn how to cook pancakes. My grandma was a master. She's my master. Right? Mastery. Appreciating mastery. You see? So there are spiritual masters on the planet. And the beautiful thing about spiritual masters is you don't find them, they find you. Your only job is to seek to know God, to seek to fulfill not just your worldly purpose, but the purpose for which you've been put on this planet. Okay? So now, in terms of lifestyle and diet, here's what I try to impress upon these people in Brazil. I says, because they talk about the essential energy, and they criticize the physicists and scientists. They're not dealing with the essential energy because their instruments can't measure it. I said, energy, okay, first, energy is spiritual. Actually, that's beyond energy, okay? You connect spiritually, okay? Now, where else can you get energy? There's something called chi and prana. Chi and prana. There's prana in the sun. There's prana in the air. When you're doing all that exercise, you get extra prana. Huh? There's prana in the water, when you're drinking that pure water. There's prana in food, but most of it's in your living foods, raw foods, as much as possible. There's prana, you see? So what I find, I love what you're doing for Rita, because I've been in Africa, I've been in Brazil, I've been in India, and what I found is many people are in a bubble. They think that what they're doing, that's it. That's the Alpha and the Omega. And then you see them doing things. You might see people, for instance, they think they got it going, right? How they walking, like this. All right? We met a guy in a cruise, a millionaire, right? Sitting in a wheelchair. He said, I'd give all my money away if I could walk again. See? So finally, I want to talk about, well, how do we nourish the spirit? Okay? And there's a formula that saints and sages do, that you can do. If you haven't yet made one of these living enlightened beings, and by the way, I grew up as a Christian, and I honor Christianity, I honor Islam. The Muslim brothers ask me, "Yo, you a Muslim?" I said, "Yeah." And Muslim means in submission to God. Well, that's my purpose. I ain't there yet, but I'm a Muslim. You see? But I grew up as a Christian, and there's so many beautiful pearls of wisdom in the Bible, but in the Quran, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Adi Granth Sahib, in all your great spiritual teachings, okay? And what they say is that what Jesus said was that all these things I do, you can do greater than these. He said it. I didn't say it. He said it. If you don't believe that you can gain self-mastery, then you're not going to believe anybody else can. So you're not going to believe there's any wise men and women. And I said women too, because I've met women saints. Okay? You're not going to believe they're on the planet. But here's the formula they give you. The number one is to make that spiritual connection. Meditation is the prime means. Why? Because when you meditate properly, you lose your mind. If you know what I mean. You rise above the mind. Because the mind is mortal. The spirit is immortal. You see? You move. So there's techniques that you can learn. I teach my clients techniques. Simple techniques that they were taught to me by the master. I don't charge my clients for meditation because it wasn't charged. I wasn't charged. But that's like a bonus. You think? So meditation. And when I say meditation, I mean not meditation where you are chanting out loud, where you are bending over. No, because you want to get beyond the mind, you don't want to engage the senses. Meditation, silent meditation, and there's ways to do it. You'll find out. Okay? The second thing they stress is what they call seva. Seva is selfless service. Meaning, in mundane terms, it means, and I know everybody here does it, it means pro bono. Okay? Do some pro bono work. Do something without getting anything in return. You see, because the law of tenfold returns is at work. That the selfless service includes tithing. Okay? If you find someone who has mastery in something that's serving and helping humanity, tithe to it. 1/10 of your disposable income. That's what they say. I didn't say it, they said it. I've seen how it worked in my life, you see. Matter of fact, the less money you have, the more you need to tithe. If you are a bum on the street and you only got a dime and your partner there wants a penny, give him the penny. Okay? And you'll find that you're going to find 10 cents, a dollar is going to come from something, you see. So selfless service is the second. Okay? The third, the masters call it satsang, being in the company of the truth. That's what the word means. It's like fellowship in certain religions. It means doing what we're doing, coming together with people of like mind to talk about the purpose and meaning of life and the higher purpose of life, you see. Okay? Those are the three pillars, you see. The last thing I'll say is this, and it's, people don't believe it, but I found it to be true. Shakespeare said, to thine own self be true. In soul therapy, we teach people, stop lying about how you feel. How do I know people are out of touch with their feelings and it's affecting them? You try this on people, right? Ask somebody how you feel. You know what 9 times out of 10 they're going to tell you? What they think. Being truthful. Now, what is being truthful? Truth. No, it says in the scriptures, know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. I found in soul therapy, our currency is truth. But someone says, well, what's your truth? My truth might be different. No, be truthful. Be honest about the physical. See, we can't leave the physical out. There's so many men, for instance, they're having symptoms and they're ignoring them, and it takes some pain, doesn't it? Some pain to make you pay attention. Physical pain. So, being truthful, we call it conscientizing, about physically what's happening. Your emotions and your feelings. Being truthful about it. Stop lying. Now, it doesn't mean you have to impose this truth on others. To thine own self be true. Because when you're truthful to yourself, what happens? The Lord tells you when to speak it, if you are to speak it, or not to speak it, or how to say it. But you must be truthful with yourself. Truthful with your thoughts, your opinions. A lot of times we have opinions and we mask and hide them. Then some of us are too opinionated, okay? But it's being truthful. And then finally, it's being truthful about what you're intuiting. And here's what I was taught. My spiritual teacher said, look, if you're having a problem, right? Because someone asked the spiritual teacher, how do you know you're doing the will of God? He said, okay, it's not necessarily doing what makes you happy. It's doing what brings you peace. So what do? He says, go into meditation, however short a time, because you're fulfilling your duty. You're seeking knowledge from the beyond, okay? And then whatever comes, do it spontaneously, because you fulfilled your purpose, you see. Someone spoke about action. I haven't met a spiritual master yet who didn't emphasize you have to move, you got to act. Pray and move your feet, okay? And the difference between prayer and meditation is prayer is mainly for glorifying the Most High, giving thanks, asking to be a more perfect person. Our problem is not prayer. Our problem is we don't be still and know that I'm God and get our instructions. Because sometimes, therefore, we have to get them through other people because we're not going inside and getting them, you see. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Yeah.